Picture this massive chamber, bigger than any stadium you've ever seen, filled with the strangest collection of beings you could imagine. We're talking about creatures with multiple arms, others that look like walking crystals, some that seem to be made of pure light, and being so alien that human minds can barely process what they're looking at. This is a galactic council, and today is probably the worst day in their entire history. Ambassador Zethkar stands at the center podium, and this guy is basically a giant octopus with way too many tentacles. Normally, he's this calm, collected diplomat who's negotiated peace treaties between species that have been fighting for thousands of years. But right now, his tentacles are shaking so badly that the translator devices are having trouble keeping up with his movement patterns. The poor guy can barely get the words out. "Honored delegates," he begins, his voice crackling through the universal translation system. "I must inform you that the Kethmore system has fallen." A wave of shocked gasps ripples through the chamber. That's 3 entire star systems now. Not just damaged, not just suffering heavy casualties, but completely empty, sterile, dead. Here's what makes this whole situation absolutely terrifying. This isn't some natural disaster we're talking about. This synthetic plague, this artificial death machine, it's like nothing anyone has ever seen before. It doesn't just kill living things and move on. No, this thing is thorough. It breaks down organic matter at the molecular level, turns thriving planets into lifeless rocks, and then somehow manages to destroy even the bacteria in the soil. When this plague is done with the world, there's literally nothing left alive, not even microbes. The worst part? It's getting faster. The first system took 6 months to completely sterilize. The second took 4 months. Kethmore? Just 2 months from first contact to total planetary death. Whatever created this thing, it designed it to learn, to adapt, to get better at killing with every world it consumes. Now, you have to understand something about the Galactic Council. These aren't primitive civilizations we're talking about. The beings sitting in this chamber represent the absolute pinnacle of scientific achievement in the known universe. The Xerian Collective has these crystalline minds that can process information at speeds that would make our best quantum computers look like pocket calculators. They've solved mathematical problems that would take human scientists centuries to even understand, let alone solve. Then you have Ethereal Collective, beings of pure energy who exist in multiple dimensions at once. They don't just think about problems, they experience them across different realities simultaneously. If anyone could find a solution to something like this, it would be them. And don't even get me started on the ancient ones from the Forgotten Reach. These guys have been manipulating genetics and biological systems for so long that they were reshaping life forms when most species were still figuring out fire. They can literally create new forms of life from scratch, design organisms that can survive in the vacuum of space or in the heart of a star. All of these incredible civilizations, with their vast knowledge and impossible technologies, have thrown everything they have at this plague. They've created treatments that should work in theory, deployed countermeasures based on millions of years of experience, and run simulations on computers more advanced than anything humans have ever dreamed of building. And they've all failed. Every single attempt, every brilliant strategy, every technological marvel they deployed against this thing has been completely useless. The plague doesn't just resist their treatments. It learns from them. It adapts. It evolves. By the time they finish developing a cure, the plague has already changed into something their cure can't touch. So here they are, the most advanced beings in the galaxy, facing extinction and running out of options. The silence in the chamber is deafening. You can actually feel the despair radiating from thousands of different species, all trying to process the fact that their greatest minds might not be enough to save them. That's when Zethkar does something that changes everything. His tentacles stop shaking for just a moment, and he looks around the chamber with something that might be hope in his alien eyes. "There is one possibility we have not explored," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "The legends speak of species that thrive in conditions no civilized being could survive. The Deathworlders. Half the delegates think he's lost his mind. The other half have never even heard the term before. 3 days pass, and honestly, most of the council delegates are starting to think Ambassador Zethkar has completely lost it. I mean, sending out a distress call to mythical creatures that probably don't even exist? It sounds like something desperate people do when they run out of real options. The more rational delegates are already making plans to evacuate their homeworlds, figuring they got maybe 6 months before this plague reaches the core systems. Then something impossible happens. The communication array starts picking up a signal from the absolute last place anyone expected, Quarantine Zone Omega 7. Now, let me tell you about this place because it's basically the galaxy's equivalent of a horror movie setting. Every single star chart in known space has this region marked in bright red with warnings that roughly translate to "do not enter under any circumstances." We're talking about a sector of space so dangerous, so hostile to life, that even the most adventurous explorers won't go near it. The stories about Omega 7 are the stuff of nightmares. Radiation levels that would cook most organic beings in seconds. Gravitational anomalies that can tear apart starships like tissue paper. Planets with atmospheric conditions so toxic that they make acid rain look like a gentle spring shower. And that's just the environmental hazards. The rumors talk about worse things that hunt in the void between stars. But here's the really weird part about this incoming transmission. It's not coming through quantum entanglement communicators or subspace relay networks like every other civilized species uses. No, this signal is traveling through old-fashioned electromagnetic waves, the kind of primitive communication method that most species abandoned thousands of years ago. It's like getting a message delivered by smoke signals when everyone else is using holographic video calls. The technical crew has to actually dust off ancient equipment just to decode the signal properly. Some of the younger technicians have never even seen this type of communication system before. They're frantically pulling up historical databases, trying to figure out how to process something so incredibly basic by galactic standards. When they finally get the signal stabilized and displayed on the main viewing screen, the entire council chamber goes dead silent. What they see defies every expectation they had about what might live in the quarantine zones. Standing in what appears to be some kind of military command center is a bipedal creature unlike anything in their extensive databases. She's got this upright posture that suggests confidence, maybe even arrogance. Her skin is this strange peachy color with no scales, no chitin, no protective covering at all. Just soft, vulnerable-looking flesh that seems impossibly fragile for something that supposedly lives in one of the most dangerous regions of space. But it's her face that really throws everyone off. She has these patches of hair growing above her optical sensors, which is weird enough, but what really gets their attention are those eyes. Forward-facing, both pointing in the same direction. The kind of visual setup that evolution only gives to hunters, predators, things that chase down and kill other things for a living. This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. She says, and here's where it gets really freaky. She's speaking perfect council standard, the universal language that takes most species years to master. Her pronunciation is flawless. Her grammar is spot on. And she's using terminology that suggests she understands complex galactic politics and military structures. How is that even possible? This creature is supposedly from a quarantine zone that no civilized species has ever visited. There are no trade routes to Omega 7, no diplomatic missions, no cultural exchange programs. Yet somehow, this human has not only learned their language, but mastered it completely. The Admiral looks directly into the camera with those predator eyes and continues, "We've been monitoring your situation for the past several rotations." Monitoring? They've been watching the galaxy's greatest crisis unfold from their isolated corner of space? What kind of surveillance capabilities do these creatures possess? "We understand you're dealing with a synthetic plague that's proven resistant to conventional treatments," she says, as casually as if she's discussing the weather. The fact that she knows specific details about their crisis, details that were supposed to be classified at the highest levels of council security, sends chills through the assembled delegates. Then she does something that makes everyone in the chamber deeply uncomfortable. Her mouth curves upward, revealing rows of white, pointed teeth in what her species apparently considers a friendly expression. To the council delegates, it looks like a threat display, the kind of gesture a predator makes right before it attacks. "We're willing to help," Admiral Stone continues, still wearing that unsettling tooth-showing expression. "But I should probably warn you up front that we don't exactly operate by standard galactic protocols." The casual way she says it, like offering to help save the entire galaxy, is just another Tuesday for her people. That's when the delegates realize they might have just invited something truly dangerous into their crisis. 2 weeks later, when the human fleet drops out of whatever primitive propulsion system they use, every single council observer loses their minds. I mean, these ships are absolutely nothing like what anyone expected. Picture the most beautiful spacecraft you can imagine. Council vessels are these flowing, elegant masterpieces that look like they were grown rather than built. Smooth curves, energy-efficient designs, materials that shimmer with built-in force fields and atmospheric processors. They're basically flying works of art that happen to be incredibly functional. Now throw all that out the window. The human ships look like someone took a bunch of metal shipping containers, welded them together, and then stuck weapons on every available surface. We're talking about massive, blocky, angular monstrosities that seem to ignore every principle of aerodynamics and energy efficiency. They're covered in armor plating so thick it makes the ships look bulky and awkward, like flying tanks rather than space vessels. But here's the part that makes absolutely no sense to anyone watching. These crude, primitive-looking ships are somehow keeping up with the most advanced vessels in the galaxy. The Council's finest engineering minds are running calculations trying to figure out how something that ugly and inefficient could possibly function in space, let alone travel at interstellar speeds. Then there's the noise. Oh, the noise! The lead human vessel is broadcasting something they call music on open channels, and it's unlike anything any civilized species has ever heard. These chaotic sound patterns with irregular rhythms and sudden volume changes that seem designed to assault the senses rather than please them. Several Villani delegates actually start weeping when they hear it, their sensitive auditory systems unable to process the aggressive tones. The crystalline beings from Zirian Prime go into some kind of recursive calculation loop, their normally perfect logic patterns disrupted by the mathematical impossibility of the sound structures. When the human ships dock with the Council's research station, that's when things get really weird. Standard protocol requires full environmental suits, multiple layers of protective gear, and extensive decontamination procedures before anyone can safely board a station. The atmospheric composition alone should require specialized breathing apparatus for any visiting species. But these humans, they just walk out of their ships wearing nothing but thin fabric coverings and some kind of metal insignia pinned to their chests. No environmental suits, no breathing apparatus, no protective shielding of any kind. They're just casually strolling through the docking bay, breathing recycled station air like it's the most natural thing in the world. The medical officers monitoring the situation are going crazy, trying to understand how these beings can survive in conditions that would kill most species within minutes. The station's atmospheric mixture contains trace elements that are toxic to at least 40% of known life forms. Yet these humans are treating it like a pleasant walk in whatever passes for nature on their homeworld. Then something happens that turns a bizarre situation into absolute madness. There's an accident in the lower research levels, a containment breach that floods an entire corridor with hard radiation. We're talking about the kind of exposure that would literally liquefy organic tissue in seconds, the kind of radiation that requires a complete evacuation of 3 entire deck sections. The human response? They clip these little metal discs to their clothing and keep working. Not evacuation, not panic, not even concern. Just small metal badges and business as usual. When asked about these devices, one of them casually explains that they're dosimeters for monitoring radiation exposure, like wearing a watch to check the time. But the real moment that breaks everyone's understanding of reality comes when Dr. Kevin Walsh arrives. This guy is supposedly their plague specialist. They're expert in dealing with dangerous biological agents. The Council have prepared the most secure research facility they can create, with multiple containment fields, robotic handling systems, and observation equipment that allows scientists to study dangerous materials from several rooms away. Previous research teams working on plague samples have required full hazmat suits, sealed environmental systems, and remote manipulation tools. Even with all these precautions, they've lost 3 entire teams to accidental exposure. These were experienced scientists using the most advanced protective equipment the galaxy could provide. Dr. Walsh walks into containment area wearing nothing but a thin lab coat and a pair of polymer gloves that look like they came from a children's toy set. He picks up a sample container that contains enough concentrated plague material to sterilize a small moon, holds it up to the light like he's examining fine wine, and makes a casual comment about how the molecular structure reminds him of something called Ebola from his homeworld. The Council observers are watching through 6 separate layers of protective shielding, their instruments detecting lethal contamination levels throughout the entire lab. And this human is handling galaxy-ending death like he's organizing papers on his desk. That's the moment when every delegate realizes they might have invited the most terrifying species in the universe to help solve their problem. What happens next completely destroys everything the Council thought they knew about problem solving. Every civilized species in the galaxy approaches challenges the same logical way. You study the problem, run computer models, test solutions in controlled environments, and gradually work your way up to larger trials. It's methodical, it's safe, and it's how intelligent beings have solved problems for millions of years. The humans throw that entire approach out the window. Dr. Walsh gathers his team in what they call a war room, which is basically just a regular conference room, except they've covered every wall with charts, diagrams, and what looks like organized chaos. Instead of trying to create a cure for the plague, they start talking about weaponizing Earth's biological nightmares against it. And when I say nightmares, I mean things that make the galaxy-ending plague look almost friendly by comparison. They're discussing something called bacteriophages, which are apparently viruses that hunt other viruses like some kind of microscopic predator. Then they start talking about modified retroviruses that were originally designed to fight Earth's own version of cellular death, something they casually refer to as cancer. The way they describe these Earth diseases, it sounds like their entire planet is basically a biological warfare testing ground that somehow produces species instead of extinction. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. When the Council delegates ask about testing procedures and safety protocols, Dr. Walsh just shrugs and says they'll test it on themselves first. Not on lab animals, not in computer simulations, not even on tissue samples. On themselves. Living, breathing humans are going to be the test subjects for treatments designed to fight the most dangerous biological agent the galaxy has ever seen. The Council observers think this is some kind of translation error. Surely no intelligent species would deliberately expose themselves to certain death just to gather data. There must be some misunderstanding in the communication protocols. But then they watch it happen. Human volunteers actually line up outside the medical bay, not reluctant conscripts or condemned criminals, but eager volunteers who seem almost excited about the opportunity to potentially die horribly for science. They're joking with each other, sharing what they call last meals, and making casual conversation like they're waiting in line to buy movie tickets instead of volunteering for what amounts to assisted suicide. The first volunteer, a young lab technician named Amy Carson, sits down in a medical chair and rolls up her sleeve like she's giving a routine blood sample. Dr. Walsh injects her with the first experimental treatment, a combination of modified viruses that should, in theory, teach her immune system to recognize and destroy the plague. Within hours, she's running a fever that would kill most species. Her cellular structure starts breaking down in ways that make the monitoring equipment scream warnings. But instead of crying out in pain or begging for help, she's dictating notes into a recording device, describing exactly how the treatment is affecting her body, what symptoms are appearing in what order, and how intense each reaction feels on a scale from 1 to 10. She dies 6 hours later, still talking into that recorder, her final words being suggestions for how to modify the treatment based on her experience. The humans around her bedside aren't mourning or expressing horror at what just happened. They're taking notes and discussing how to improve the next version. Then the next volunteer sits down. Marine Captain Tommy Brooks gets injected with treatment version 2, which has been modified based on Amy's dying observations. This one works a little better. Instead of dying in 6 hours, he lasts almost 2 days. But when the treatment starts failing and his organs begin shutting down, he doesn't complain or ask for pain relief. He keeps updating his research log, describing every symptom in clinical detail, even as he's literally coughing up blood onto the pages. When a Council observer asks him why he's doing this, why any rational being would choose to die such a horrible death for strangers they've never met, Captain Brooks actually starts laughing. Not bitter, hysterical laughter, but genuine amusement, as if the question itself is funny to him. "It's what we do," he says between coughs, blood speckling the microphone as he speaks. "We die so others don't have to. It's pretty standard human behavior, really." He says this like it's the most obvious thing in the world. Like sacrificing your life for complete strangers is as natural as breathing or eating. The casual way he treats his own impending death, like dying horribly for the benefit of species he's never even heard of, is just part of his job description. That's when the council realizes they're dealing with something that shouldn't exist in a rational universe. By the 15th volunteer, they finally get a treatment that works. 15 humans died to create a cure that could save billions of lives across thousands of worlds. And when it's over, the surviving humans act like this was just another day at the office, already moving on to the next problem that needs solving. One complete galactic rotation later, something impossible has happened. The plague that was supposed to end all life in the universe is gone. Not contained, not slowed down, not managed into some kind of livable threat. Completely extinct. Wiped out so thoroughly that not a single trace of it exists anywhere in known space. But here's the part that absolutely blows everyone's minds. The human cure doesn't just work better than the original plague. It actually spreads faster. While the synthetic death took months to consume entire star systems, the human treatment swept through infected regions in weeks. And the delivery method? The humans themselves. These crazy Deathworlders are literally flying from world to world, walking around infected planets without any protective equipment, breathing contaminated air and drinking polluted water like they're on some kind of twisted vacation. Their own modified immune systems are manufacturing and distributing the cure just by existing in these toxic environments. They've turned themselves into living, breathing weapons against extinction itself. The council medical teams are running scans on these humans as they work, and the data makes no sense whatsoever. These beings are thriving in conditions that killed the plague. Radiation that was supposed to be lethal, their cells are actually using it as an energy source. Toxic chemicals that dissolve previous research teams, the humans are processing them like vitamins. They've somehow turned every single thing that should kill them into something that makes them stronger. Dr. Walsh explains it like this. Earth didn't just try to kill us for millions of years. It taught us how to kill back. Every disease, every poison, every environmental hazard became a learning experience. Our immune systems don't just fight off threats. They steal their techniques and add them to our arsenal. He says this while casually eating what the local species considers deadly toxic fruit, treating planetary poison like a light snack. But the real revelation comes when the council finally starts to understand what they've been witnessing. This isn't just about humans being tough or resistant to danger. They fundamentally redefine what survival means. Most species try to avoid threats, build protections, create safe environments where they can exist peacefully. Humans do the exact opposite. They seek out danger, embrace suffering, and turn every attempt to destroy them into a new way to protect others. Take Marine Captain Danny Rivers, for example. This guy gets infected with a mutated strain of the plague that should have killed him in hours. Instead of seeking treatment or isolation, he volunteers to visit the 3 most heavily infected worlds in the galaxy. As the infection tries to adapt to kill him, his immune system is learning its tricks and developing countermeasures in real time. By the time he recovers, his body has created antibodies for plague variants that didn't even exist when he first got sick. The way he describes it is terrifying in its simplicity. Pain is just information and death is just another problem to solve. The more something tries to kill you, the more you learn about how to kill it back. He's literally turned suffering into a weapon, using his own agony as a tool to save billions of lives. As the crisis winds down and the human fleet prepares to return to their quarantine zone, Admiral Rebecca Stone addresses the council one final time. The same woman who appeared on that primitive transmission weeks ago, except now everyone knows exactly what they're looking at. Not just a representative of some unknown species, but a member of the most dangerous life forms the universe has ever produced. Well, that was fun, she says with that unsettling tooth-showing expression they call a smile. Always nice to meet the neighbors and help out with a little problem. Little problem. She's referring to the near extinction of all galactic life as a little problem. Then she does something that makes every delegate simultaneously grateful and terrified. she extends an invitation. You're all welcome to visit Earth sometime if you want to see where we come from. Fair warning, though, it's spring back home, so the air's pretty thick with plant reproductive spores. Might want to bring some antihistamines. Antihistamines. They need medicine just to breathe the air on the human homeworld. She continues, almost as an afterthought. Oh, and watch out for our local wildlife. The cute fuzzy ones with the big eyes are usually the most dangerous. We've got these little furry creatures called koalas that look adorable, but can give you diseases that'll kill you in creative ways. And don't get me started on the drop bears. The council delegates are frantically taking notes, adding warning after warning to their files about this death world species. But they're also updating their records with new classification that's never been used before. Approach with extreme caution and infinite gratitude, because that's exactly what humanity represents to the galaxy now. They're the neighbors you never want to make angry, but you're incredibly grateful they're on your side. The species that solves problems by throwing themselves at certain death, until death gives up and goes away. And that's how humanity introduced itself to the wider universe. Not as conquerors seeking territory, not as diplomats looking for trade agreements, not as explorers seeking knowledge. They showed up as the crazy neighbors who'll die for complete strangers without thinking twice about it, who turn their own suffering into salvation for others, and who consider galaxy-ending catastrophes to be minor inconveniences that can be solved with enough determination and willingness to embrace pain. The quarantine zone stays exactly where it is, but now it's not just about protecting the galaxy from whatever lives in there. It's about protecting those dangerous, wonderful, absolutely insane humans from a universe that's nowhere near tough enough to deserve them.